All right, today we're going to be doing the 2.7 notes. So turn to the 2.7 notes in your packet. All right, so yesterday's lesson we talked about how when you're solving these equations that you need to make sure before you start undoing any operations that you clear out fractions and that you simplify each side of the equal sign all the way down to its most simplified form. All right, so here we see with these problems, we definitely have to do some simplifying here with these equations on both sides. But I want you to notice that for problem A, where we have more than one grouping symbol, right? We have parentheses, and then we also have the brackets. Now, the most common mistake that students make, right, is that they're going to look at that 3 and they want to go ahead and distribute, right? Because they see a 3 next to a grouping symbol like brackets, and they want to distribute that 3 through the parentheses. Again, we can understand why someone would do that. Again, we all learn growing up as we got older that, right, we process things from left to right. We read from left to right. So we see the 3 first, so we're going to want to do something with that 3 first, and the most common step here is that we're going to distribute that 3 to the 6. You have to make sure for problems like these that you refrain from doing that. So what you want to do instead is when you have parentheses inside brackets, inside other grouping symbols, is that you really want to focus in on the innermost grouping symbol first. So here we're going to start off by looking at the h plus 2 inside the parentheses. Now, there's not much we can do with that. All right? There's not much we can do to simplify that. So what we're going to then do is expand our view to include that negative that's in front of the parentheses. Okay, so here is where we can actually do something, right? So we have that negative or that -1, right outside the parentheses. So we're going to distribute that to get -1h, and then distribute that to the 2, -2, right? So again, distributing to both parts of the binomial to everything that's inside the parentheses, we get -h minus 2. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand my view to include that 6 and the brackets. Now notice I did not include the 3 yet, right? So I want to focus on now my attention on the 6 with that -1h and that -2 that we got earlier. All of this is inside the brackets. So here we can simplify because we have an opportunity to combine like terms. I got a 6 and a -2 to get 4. And we still have that -1h or that -1h inside the squared off brackets. Now that I have what's inside the brackets simplified as it's going to get, now I'm going to expand my view to include that 3 right outside the bracket. And then now I'm going to go ahead and distribute that 3 through the brackets. So once I do that, you see that now the parentheses that was originally there on the left side, now the brackets that was there on the left side is now gone. Okay, so again, if you need to replay this again to kind of watch what we did, remember, right, when you have these parentheses inside brackets, inside other grouping symbols, we want to work our way inside out. Okay, so now that we've finished everything for that part of the left side, I want to go ahead and bring down that -6. That was on the left side also. I want to go ahead and simplify that. So I'm going to combine 12 and -6 to get 6. And then the -3h. All right. So now that left side is totally simplified. I'm going to go ahead and simplify the right side. Let me distribute that 4 through. So I got negative 4h plus 28. All right, so now that both sides are completely simplified, I'm going to go ahead and solve for h. All right, so we solve for h. We get h is equal to 22. So moving on to part B. Again, we see the parentheses inside the brackets. So we want to start there on the right side. We're going to start with the parentheses 3 minus 2z. Again, nothing that we can do with that. So I'm going to expand just a little further to include that negative. All right, so again, we're starting by where the parentheses are. We're going to start with that negative, hanging on the parentheses, and distribute that negative through to get negative 3 plus 2z. Once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and expand my view of this problem. Okay, now I'm going to include everything that's in that bracket, the 6, the minus z, along with that negative 3, that minus 3 plus 2z. Okay, so again, here inside the brackets, I'm going to go ahead and simplify. Now that what's inside the brackets is completely simplified, I'm going to go back to the original problem, and now I'm going to expand my view slightly beyond the brackets. So slightly beyond the brackets is that negative, so I'm going to bring that down. And so now you see, next thing we want to do here is distribute that negative through. All right, so again, I took care of that negative that is from the brackets. I distributed through the brackets to get negative 3 minus z. Going back to the original problem, I can now expand my view to include that 4. So if I include that 4, let me bring that 4 down. So now I have 4 minus 3 minus z. All right, I can simplify by combining like terms. I got 1 minus z. So that's my right side. On the left side, I'm going to go ahead and combine like terms. I got negative z, negative 7z plus 3. Now I have both sides simplified. I'm going to go ahead and solve for z. All right, so I'm going to undo operations. Finally get to z equals 1/3. All right, so let's see what you can do here with part C. So again, on the left side, you want to start off with the innermost parentheses and work your way out. All right, so we're going to start by distributing that negative through the parentheses first. So we get negative 4x plus 6. Once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and bring down the 3x inside the brackets. Again, I'm not distributing a 2 right off the bat. We got to start with the innermost parentheses, distribute the negative, bring over the 3x inside the brackets, combine like terms, still inside the brackets. Now I'm going to go ahead and bring down that 2. Now I'm going to go ahead and distribute that 2. Now the left side is totally simplified. Right side, I'm just going to distribute that 1 time with the 5. Now the right side's totally simplified. Now I go ahead and solve for x. All right, by undoing operations, you should get x is equal to 6. All right, so now we're going to move on to those equations with fractions again. Some of you had a little bit trouble with understanding how to clear out the fractions when you multiply by a number, exactly what happens right after you multiply by a certain number. Okay, so here we're looking at part A, and we want to multiply by the least common denominator to try to clear out all those fractions. Okay, so the least common denominator here is going to be 4, right? So we're going to multiply everything by 4. So now with that first fraction, when we multiply by 4, so 2 cancels, and this 4 reduces down to a 2, right? Because 2 goes into 4 2 times. And what's left over, we're going to multiply with the numerator. So 2 times 3 is 6. Here, this 4 cancels, and this 4 totally cancels, because 4 goes into 4 one time. I could put a 1 there. And now I'm going to multiply that 1 by what's left over. So it's 1 times 3 times a, which is 3a. The other side of the equal sign, this 4 and this 4 totally cancel or reduce down to 1. I'm left with 1 times a, which is 1a. Here, this 2 cancels, and this 4 reduces down to a 2, because 2 goes into 4 2 times. So I'm left with 2 times 1, which is 2. Okay, so again, this is the way we're going to clear out fractions. We're going to multiply by a least common denominator to get those denominators to go. Along the way, right, we're going to have some left over that we need to take care of and multiply by. All right, so here we clear out the fractions. All right, so now we should be able to solve for a. All right, solve for a. We get a is equal to -4. All right, let's move on to example D. So now again, we have to find a least common denominator that we're going to multiply every term by to clear out all of these fractions. I got a 6, I got a 12, an 8, and a 3. So we need to find, again, the smallest possible number that all of those numbers can go into so that we can multiply by these to clear out these fractions. All right, so that number should be 24, right? So you got to be careful. Right? Some of you are not picking the right numbers to multiply by. So we have to pick 24 here. Okay, so now remember, when you pick the number that we're going to multiply by, make sure we understand exactly how it affects the fractions that we have in our equation. All right, so again, here we have a 6 in the denominator. This 6 is going to cancel away. We're going to take that 6 and divide it into 24, and 6 goes into 24 4 times. So now I'm left with 4. So 4 times 5 times m is 20m. The next fraction, this 12, I'm going to cancel away. I'm going to take that 12 and divide it into 24. Right? 12 into 24 is 2. Right? Again, your leftovers, when you reduce and you divide, should be on top with the numerators. So I'm left with a 2 times 5 to give me a 10. The next fraction, 8 is going to cancel. I'm going to divide 8 into 24. Up top where the 24 is, it's going to reduce down to a 3, right? Because 8 goes into 24 3 times. I'm left with 3 times 7 times m, 21m. This 3 is going to cancel. I'm going to divide 3 into 24. I got my leftovers up top. And that leftover is an 8. 8 times 2 is 16. Okay, so again, we want to make sure we're picking the right numbers to multiply by. All right, we solve for m. We get m is equal to -26. All right, let's have you guys try problem E. All right, so we're going to clear out those fractions. We got a 2, a 5, and a 4. All right, so the number that you should be picking here is 20. Right? 4 is not going to get it done because 4 is not going to get that 5 in the denominator to cancel. All right, so we need to pick 20. All right, so here we go. So 2 is going to cancel. 2 goes into 20 10 times. The leftovers are up top. That's what we need the leftovers to be. 10 times 1 is 10. 5 cancels. 5 goes into 20 4 times. 4 is left over up top. I got a 4 times x, 16x. This 4 cancels, goes into 25 times. 5 times 1 is 5. Right? So that's what should happen when you pick the right number to clear out your fractions. All right, so when you undo the operations, solve for x, you should get x equal to 15 over 16. All right, that's it for today. Go on to the 2.7 homework.